It wasn't long before Christmas in 1940 that Coventry was bombed in such a devastating way. Within a matter of weeks came Christmas Day, and on Christmas Day the Provost of Coventry Cathedral made a broadcast in which he appealed to the people of the world, the people of Britain, not to wreak revenge for what had happened in Coventry, but to seek to build a better world. That spirit of commitment to reconciliation beyond the devastation of the bombing of Coventry has characterised Coventry Cathedral and the city of Coventry ever since. It's not only in the cathedral that the spirit of reconciliation prevails, but also in the Herbert Art Gallery, where a whole gallery is devoted to reconciliation and peace. It was out of the ruins that the vision came to build a new cathedral, and from the ruins of the old one can look towards the new magnificent cathedral that comes out of the ruins. As the new cathedral was being designed and beginning to take shape, a sculptor, Josefina de Vasconcellos, had the vision for a new sculpture that she longed to make. She had been moved when she saw a newspaper article of a husband and wife who had been seeking each other in the aftermath of war. What she writes in her journal tells of the reason behind her sculpture. The sculpture was originally conceived in the aftermath of the war. Europe was in shock. People were stunned. I read in a newspaper about a woman who crossed Europe on foot to find her husband, and I was so moved that I made the sculpture. Then I thought that it wasn't only about the reunion of two people, but hopefully a reunion of nations which had been fighting. Josefina de Vasconcellos' sculpture Reunion was exhibited for the first time in 1955 in the Royal Watercolour Society galleries in Conduit Street in London. Then it was on the back burner for about 15 years. At the end of the 1960s, 1972, the new University of Bradford had just opened, and its new Vice-Chancellor had a passion to create a chair of peace studies in the university. The Peace Studies Department and the chair was established in 1973. Josefina de Vasconcellos contributed her sculpture to the gardens of the new Peace Department in the University of Bradford. The sculpture was placed there and given a new name in keeping with the spirit of that Peace Studies Department, which had been the inspiration of the Society of Friends of the Quakers and many others. They called it simply Reconciliation. In 1995, Josefina de Vasconcellos recast the sculpture once again. This time it was placed as a gift of Richard Branson here in the grounds of Coventry Cathedral, in the ruins of the cathedral, with the Chapel of Unity of the modern cathedral in the background. It wasn't long before another cast of the sculpture was made, and in 1999, to mark the 10th anniversary of the coming down of the Berlin Wall, Josefina de Vasconcellos journeyed to Berlin, where at the Church of Reconciliation, this sculpture of reconciliation was unveiled. The church had, in the time of the Berlin Wall, stood within yards of the Berlin Wall itself. And in 1988 the East German regime had demolished the church, but the people of the church lived on, and after the wall came down the church had been rebuilt, and in the grounds of that church now stands this sculpture. In the ruins of the church that had been demolished had been found a Bible. Josefina de Vasconcellos made a cast of that Bible and placed it between the two embracing figures. It's wrapped in barbed wire, a sign that reconciliation has to come to a divided wall. The plinth in Berlin made up of fragments of the Berlin Wall. a challenge that walls should come down in the spirit of reconciliation. Not revenge, but reconciliation should take place. A similar sculpture had been placed, another casting of the same bronze, in the Peace Garden in Hiroshima. A smaller copy of the sculpture was presented to the people of Dresden. Coventry's links of reconciliation reaching out worldwide. And then, in the wake of the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland, a copy of the sculpture placed in the gardens of Stormont Castle in Belfast, symbolic again of reconciliation. And now a longing that a copy could be placed in Jerusalem too, where walls again divide and where the longing is for reconciliation to take the place of the divided wall. Josefina de Vasconcellos was a wonderful sculptor, a devout Christian, and had a passion for social justice, working among deprived children for her lifetime in her home in the Lake District. She had a gift not only for sculpture, but also for poetry, and it's in the words of her own poem that the spirit of this sculpture is caught more than anywhere else. I and my enemy met, now free to wander, but too tired to go. Suddenly weak, we staggered, gripping for support, and fell to our knees. In the mud between us lay the bones of a child. We prayed God for forgiveness, and in that moment were reconciled.